Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to say thanks for inviting Pam Miller here today to present to you about Kids Kottage and the work that we do. And I'm pleased to speak to you about this wonderful agency in Pam's absence. And she sends her regrets, for sure. My name is Reiter, and I'm the Executive Director at Kids Kottage Foundation. So at Kids Kottage, we believe that every child deserves to be safe, no matter what circumstance, no matter what's going on at home or wherever they are. I noticed that one of the goals of this Interfaith Centre for Education and Action is to make those of us in Alberta aware of the many faith expressions in our province. And I've read through the programs that you create. You are attempting to build bridges of understanding in order to create a more harmonious and respectful community. Staff at the Kids Kottage are made up of people of many different faiths. But we all come together along with the community to help keep the most important people in the world safe, our children. Specifically, infants and children under the age of 11. Kids Kottage is a safe place for children when their families are in crisis and in turmoil and in chaos, and they need help to find balance. There are a lot of people in the world who need help. We all need it from time to time. You need help. I know I need help. I had to get help to find this place today. And so those of us who have a faith and work at Kids Kottage express our faiths by helping babies and children to be safe and to feel secure at Kids Kottage, which is a home away from their home. We help the 10-year-old who is worried and perhaps he's feeling really angry that those he loves and whose responsibility it is to care for him cannot do so. We help that 4-year-old who finds it hard to fall asleep because there are many noises in an old building like Kids Kottage at night. And we help him fall asleep. We can talk about comforting things. We help a 3-week-old baby with all the things that 3-week-old babies need. And you can well imagine there are lots of things for 3-week-old babies. It's all about right now, it's about our future, it's about economics, it's about human potential, it's about doing the right thing, and it's about breaking the cycle. It's about giving children a chance to live. I repeat, we believe that no child under the age of 11 should go without safe shelter. That's the very reason Kids Kottage exists. We're the only 24-hour crisis childcare option available in Edmonton. Now we know that truly helping means we need to help more than the child. We need to help the whole family. And we have helped them all. No matter what the background, no matter what the situation, we don't judge, we help. We can report that over 98% of the children who come and stay at Kids Kottage return home to their own parent and their own home. That is, over 98% of the children who stay with us do not require a government intervention. We tell all of our parents that asking for help is a sign of strength. It takes real bravery to ask for help, particularly if you're a parent and you need to leave your children somewhere that's strange and different to you. And because it takes a great deal of bravery to ask for help, we at Kids Kottage Foundation aren't afraid to ask for help either. In fact, we do it all the time. What we do is too important to get hung up on being embarrassed to ask for help. Who cares who you are? Who cares what happened up until now? A child needs help. End of story. Because it all comes back to the reason Kids Kottage is here. The most important reason that there is. A child in need should never go without safe shelter. I'd have loved to show you just a short video at this place called Emma. The reasons that children come, that parents bring their children to leave them with us for a short stay, are just so many, you can't count them all. They're all the things that happen in real life. And in vulnerable families, it's very, very difficult. Emma's the story of a little girl who was cowered in her bedroom because she could hear her parents yelling and screaming at each other. And she was afraid. She could hear her daddy saying really mean words. And then her mom came and said, quick, quick, get into the car like we practiced before, quick. And so I ran to the car like we did practice before, and we drove away. And I was crying because I forgot to bring my favorite blanket. And I was kind of afraid and didn't know where we were going. And my mom took us to a place called Kids Kottage. And when I got there, they talked very kindly to my mom and helped her to tell them what really was going on in our lives. And my mom let me stay there. Kids can stay there for nearly 72 hours while their parents go and sort things out. So while I stayed there, I made lots of friends. There were other kids there. I got my very own bed, and you know what? I got my own blanket that I could call mine, and I got a favorite teddy bear. And after I stayed there for a while, my mom came back to get me. And she said, this was not good, what happened at home. But Daddy and I are going to work on our problems, and we're not going to yell at each other anymore while we work them out, and we're so sorry that we scared you. Well, Emma said, at the end of it all, my family really isn't the same as everybody else's family, but my parents are working really hard to make it that way. And it's great that my mom and dad have a counselor friend at the cottage to talk to. This year is a particularly difficult year for all the families in Edmonton. I'm sure that you're all aware. But it's especially difficult for vulnerable families. People who were living paycheck to paycheck, the day the check stops, they are immediately in trouble. Wage earners have lost their jobs, the food prices are going up, the rents are becoming unaffordable, money never makes it to the end of the month anymore. Parents are afraid. The whole family is becoming thoroughly distressed. And distress leads to a complete inability to cope. Parents need help in order to ensure that their children are safe and that they receive the parenting that they deserve when the family is in crisis or worn out and really needs respite. If you, each of you, consider all the various challenges that you're well aware of, that you hear about all the time in our community today, you will know that Kids Kottage is at the forefront of everyone, helping the children and the families that are impacted by them. When the phone rings and the intake worker picks it up, hello, Kids Kottage, how can I help you today? That worker never knows what she is going to hear. Perhaps mom just got evicted. Perhaps there's no food left in the house. Perhaps she and her significant other are fighting, and her children are actually witnessing all of this violence and handling these kind of situations poorly. Sometimes mom's mentally ill, and she knows she is, and she has medication, and she sees the doctor. But she's at a place where she's not coping right now. Sometimes mom is sick, and she doesn't have any other person in her life who could care for the children while she's not well enough. It's not uncommon to have a mom say, I seriously have an appointment at the hospital. I'm supposed to have a procedure today, and my sitter just backed out. Oh, please, can you help me? Because I'll never get it done if I have to not go today. Then I have to start all over again. And then I'm not going to be well to look after my children. And sometimes it's simply a worn out, disillusioned mom. I simply can't do this. I don't know if I can ever do this, but I know I can't do it today. I need some help. I'm taking out all of my problems on my kids. That's what I'm doing. I know I shouldn't do that. I know that's cruel and mean, but I can't go another step. Please, will you help me? And sometimes a mom phones and she is so absolutely angry with her children for the childlike behavior that children have. And she's so distressed because she knows that when kids are small, what is really happening? Every experience is building the child's brain. And when parents allow their kids to be completely stressed out by how they are coping, their children's little brains actually will show that problem later on. Those moms need help. They need help now. And that's why we're really glad that we're there. So if you go to our website, I think you'll actually find a tour through Kids Kottage. But let me tell you what it's like. So mom and her child or her children have already phoned the cottage. Mom knows that there's room and that her children meet our criteria. So when she walks in the door with her children, mom's going like this. Okay, we're gonna make it. These people are gonna help. But the little ones whose hands she's holding have a completely different perception. Their questions are always quite similar. What is this place? Why am I here? Was I bad? Is my mom going to come back and get me? Is this child welfare? Can you imagine? And so we're so happy to be able to say, this is a safe place for you to be because your mom needs some time to work out some big people things. And while you're here, you're going to play and you'll learn lots and you'll have wonderful meals and snacks. We'll read great books. We'll play wonderful games. And in 2 or 3 sleeps, whichever it may be, your mom will come back and get you. And so the child begins to calm, heads first to the Bearpit. The Bearpit is this wonderful corner that's got a little pony wall around it, and in it are wonderful stuffies that people in Edmonton have given us for the children. And so the child goes and picks himself out a friend that will stay with him the whole time that he stays at Kids Kottage. Now listen, if we're going for a walk, or we're going out to the playground, and somebody forgot their friend, everything stops. And we don't go till everybody has their friend. It is very, very important. When the kids go home with their mom, 2 or 3 days later, they'll take their friend with them. And it will be a reminder that things are good at Kids Kottage. It's a safe and a happy place for kids. So while other staff come and join the intake worker to help the children to change out of their clothes, and they put on gently used clothes that the community has given us. There's a good reason for that, and if you think about it, it makes good sense. Above all, the safety of children is our responsibility. And so if they change into other clothes, it gives us a chance to have a quick look at little bodies, not to peer at them. Quick look at little bodies to make sure that there aren't marks there that shouldn't be there. And if there should be, it's a simple conversation with mom. Tell me what happened. Tell me how this got here. And then, because by law, if children are harmed, then we have to report that to Children's Services. Right with Mom With Us, we do that. And then Mom can talk to that worker. And she can say, I have my children in a safe place. I have done that. But I know I'm going to need your help going forward. What a better way to set up a relationship with the government of Alberta. Because now that worker is aware that Mom has her face headed in the right direction, the children will be safe, and now the worker has time to talk to Mom and find out what is it essentially that she might need from those services or from us. Who knows, right? And then the children are off to play. Off to the playroom, off to the playground, down to the dining room to eat, whatever is going on in the cottage at the time, then the kids are immersed in that. Mom stays behind. Of course, she has so many papers to fill out. You can imagine if you are leaving your children with someone you don't know, you're going to make sure they know a great deal about your children. And Kids Kottage is going to make sure that Mom understands exactly what we are allowed to do and what we won't do, and how we can get a hold of her, and everything, how we treat children if they are misbehaving, all of these things. So it's a big, long conversation. And then comes that point in the interview when Mom has to pull the Kleenex box over, and then she has to start to tell the intake worker why she has her children here. There will always be tears. There will always be tears. I think it is a good thing. I think it's a good thing if the intake worker doesn't cry too, but if it happens, it happens, and everyone pulls themselves together and onward we go. So we help Mom to set some goals and action plan. If this is what's wrong, what will you need to do to fix it? How long do you think you'll need to fix it? Children only stay at Kids Kottage from 24 to 72 hours.
Oh, really? Oh. Just 3 days?
Just 3 days, free of charge. So we're always encouraging Mom. I know it feels like the whole world is wrong. You haven't done anything right for quite a while and nothing is going to get fixed. Let's pick the one thing that if it got fixed would make a big difference in getting the rest fixed. And so we chat, and then Mom chooses what it is she wants to work on. And we help her to set 3 reasonable goals. 3 things that she can do while her children stay with us. And when she comes back to pick up her children, then we'll look at those 3 things and we'll find out how did Mom do. Our moms do very, very well, particularly the circumstances that they're in. And so 87% of our moms will complete at least 2 out of 3 of their goals. This is good, and it makes a big difference. And so we can offer all sorts of referrals in the community and places where Mom might find the extra help that she might need, but she always knows she can come back. She can call again, okay? And when she goes home, the biggest thing we want to know from her is, okay, when you came, You said you felt like on a scale of 1 to 10, you were coping at a 4. It's not a very good measurement for caring for children. So now you've had some respite, you've gotten some of your problems dealt with, so how do you think you might cope now when you take your children home? Generally, it will be 6 or more on the scale of 1 to 10. Now sometimes it isn't. And all that means to us is we need to keep this family very, very close to us. And we need to make sure that perhaps Children's Services doesn't need to be involved. Children's Services has way more resources than a community agency like we do. And when mom goes home, guess what? Kids Kottage follow-up worker kind of goes with her. She'll get a phone call right away quick, and Julie, who is our worker, will say, okay, so did it get kind of straightened out while the kids were here? If it's not completely straightened out, what might be not straight yet? And how can we help you to do that? Julie meets with families in their own home. She meets with families if mom is going to school or something like that. She'll head to the school, and when mom has a break, then they'll sit down and they'll talk. And parents stay with our follow-up worker in that program until they believe they don't need it anymore. There's no certain amount of money that got spent and then you're out. If we have had parents who they might have longer and longer times in between seeing us, but they might stay hooked up to the program for 2 to 4 years. Now, part of the follow-up program is to help parents become kind of immersed in their own community. They can be very isolated. Because they haven't been doing a good job of parenting, sometimes their children don't behave extremely well. So then they don't want to go out. They don't want to do the things that could be done in the community. And so what we do is we make sure we send a couple of workers along, and Julie's normally along, and we go and participate in community things so that the kids get that experience and mom gets that experience. And guess what else mom learns? Oh, everybody's kids kind of act up sometimes. It isn't just mine. And so we've chipped away at some of the isolation. We do other things. We have ad hoc parenting groups. We're just finishing up our Santa's workshop. So the parents come and have a little discussion with the follow-up worker. How are things going? What is it that she feels the kids need for Christmas? We have wonderful donors that provide us that stuff. And mom can go home with a gift for her child at the same time as she's had a little visit with the follow-up worker. We do family camps. Family camp is a very exciting thing for our families. I was totally amazed at how many families, even the parents themselves, had never gone camping, ever. Like, I came up on the farm, and I mean, we spent the summer going to one camp or another, right? And so it is an eye-opening thing for them. It's very, very exciting, and we always have staff there to provide the kind of support they might need. The other camp that we do is send kids to the Tim Hortons Children's Foundation camp. We have a partnership with them. And each year we send 45 or 50 kids, and they get to go to the camp at Tim Hortons. We've sent kids off on airplanes who thought they were going to another country, and we have bused lots of kids. It's very exciting to go, and it's wonderful to watch the kids grow and gain confidence. We really appreciate Tim Hortons because they watch for leadership qualities in our kids. And we have a few that they have called back and said, you know, if you will come to leadership camp every year for 5 years, at the end of it, we'll give you a scholarship for secondary school. I watched a mom just break down and cry. Like, but I'd never have been able to send her to secondary school. And it makes a difference when mom is disillusioned and tired and wants to give up, she's still gonna make her child get up and go to school, right? Because what's the use of getting the scholarship if the kids don't do their schoolwork and be able to use it? One of the things we have going for us is a food security program. Many of our moms, the money doesn't make it to the end of the month, and they really have very little experience in making meals from scratch and making them nutritious and everything. So we have this program, it's 10 to 12 weeks long. They come together with 7 other people. They learn to get to know each other. They get a cookbook, and the lady from Kitchens and Capital Health comes and she facilitates for them. And they learn how to make simple, cost-efficient, but nutritious meals. And then when they go, at the end of the program, we give them a big box of basic groceries. So when they go home, they're ready to start. They have some groceries. And they know when they use something out of that thing, then that's what goes on the grocery list. And so they very subtly, they are learning to budget and they're learning to keep the right kind of food in their house. Can somebody tell me how long that's been going on?
Oh, about half an hour, which
Okay,
is perfect.
you would like me to hurry up then, hey?
No, and then we'll have time for questions. So
Okay.
You're right. Are we not able to play the videos?
I'm sorry, the laptop doesn't seem to work.
Oh.
We can't get it to turn on.
Well, Paul is my expert on that, so. Anyway, I was
Okay.
Sorry, please carry on.
So I'm just thinking that some of the questions are probably a little bit about who the people are, what kind of people. Moms aren't the only people that bring their kids to Kids Kottage.
There are any dads.
There are dads, in fact. We are getting more and more dads. We used to notice a few years ago, like the dads would sort of come in and they were like, I think they expected us to go, na-na-na, poo-poo, you couldn't do it. I think they really did. And of course, we have dads that are taking on all of the care of their family, plus they're trying to work, plus they're trying to deal with kids with special needs. We love to see those dads come. And they're strong, and they work hard, and we're really pleased. It's so much better that we remember it's not just dads that drop the ball. Moms drop the ball too. Why might dad or mom drop the ball? Things like alcoholism, maybe some addictions. I know we had one family and they were like, you know what our biggest problem is? Like, it's not that dad lost his job. He used to work in McMurray. Really the biggest problem isn't that he lost his job. I think the biggest problem is he's around all the time now. And we have to reorganize our life. And that just touches my heart because when we were young parents and raising our kids, my husband worked at it now. And I remember that very thing. When he came back, it was like, brother, all the things that I would normally do, well, then I wouldn't want to do that while he was at home. So then I'm letting down groups that I'm with, and it is a very, very taxing thing. So you go ahead and ask me some questions.
Who started Kids Kottage, please, and when?
Pardon me?
Who started Kids Kottage and when?
We are in our 20th year, and we are very, very proud of that. I have been at Kids Kottage for 20 years. I came just a very few months after it opened, and I was the program manager for a long time and then became the executive director. The fund development director has been there as long as I have. So we're really solid that way. So some 20 years ago, a group of people from various and sundry churches got together to say, we need to help families before they end up having tragic circumstances happen because they're not managing. And how will we do that? And they learned that there was a vehicle called a crisis nursery in the United States. And they traveled there and they got all of their ducks in a row and they came back and said, okay, that's what we need to have is a crisis nursery. You'll remember that Mrs. Klein was a strong supporter of Kids Kottage. And she really helped us with some of the legal, the government, all of these things. When Mrs. Klein said there is a need, then people listened a little better. And so we opened Kids Kottage. I could not pronounce for you today the name of that original group. They took 1 or 2 letters from each church they were from, and it was a total hodgepodge. And so they decided that really wasn't going to work. And so they got together and they decided they would call themselves the Kids Kottage Foundation for the Love of Children. And originally when I came, it was, they had a very broad view, and I know that those people thought that by now, 20 years later, that we'd maybe even be international. This is what it takes. People who are really visionary and got what it takes, right? And so that's how Kids Kottage got started. The government of Alberta provided some money for it to run each year, and then we fundraised the rest. And really the story is still the same today. Government of Alberta gives us about half of the actual program, the money that the actual program costs. All of that money goes into staffing, and it is up to us to fundraise in the area of $700,000 every year, net of expenses, in order to keep the doors open. It's a 24-hour facility. That's a lot of staff to pay, and so that's what we have tasked ourselves to.
What is the capacity, and have you ever been in the point where you've been over capacity, you've not been able to take people?
Excellent question.
Oh, thank you.
The capacity is 12 infants and children at any one time. Remember that children will come and go depending on when they came, right? That's when they'll get discharged. Are we ever over capacity? Very often. Most often, we're over capacity. And it is a real weight on our shoulders, because if we believe the children need to be admitted, it breaks our heart to say we don't have space. So we stay in touch with them by phone, follow-up worker, drops in, how are things okay? But we try our very best to get those kids in as soon as we can.
I guess
So
Christmas time is a bad time for overcapacity, is it not?
Yes, Christmas time, but summertime. You know what I learned? Like, if your children spend their lives at daycare or at the day home, and then summer comes, and you have your children at home with you all the time,
Yeah.
I tell you, that heats things up. Moms are exhausted before you know it. They're tired. And it does point out sometimes that that we need to do more and more teaching about what developmentally, what children are like at different ages and stages, right? Because we feel our parents wouldn't be so tired if they just understood that's just childlike behavior, right? It's but they don't know because they don't have their kids in their care that much, eh?
Do you have a good number of ethnic families coming in?
50% of the kids in the cottage would say they come from an Aboriginal heritage. And we are more and more having ethnic families. For sure, our staff comes from different
Yes, I'm sure.
right? And we like that because we think it's helpful. That if they work at Kids Kottage, then the families of their culture will likely believe that we're okay, right? So that's how we that's one of the reasons that we just love to have people from all the different.
How many staff do you have?
About 30 that work in the crisis nursery, and then there are 5 of us that work in the administration fundraising office.
And what about language?
Really, in the 90-some% of the children that come, they do speak English at home, even if it wasn't their first language,
Yeah.
but they're speaking English. Sometimes their moms have more trouble. But we do have other agencies in the city that we can phone, and they'll step up and send us over a translator if we need one, right? Because really the program won't be successful unless we really
Yes.
can understand each other,
Exactly.
right? Mom and us. And really, I think, particularly if they don't communicate well, they're going to go away and they're going to be worried because they're going to think they missed something, and we're going to do something that they don't really want us to.
How many repeats do you get?
Lots. And I always say, I know lots of people feel like we shouldn't, and I always say, but they're vulnerable families to start with, and they are buried so deep, like 172-hour break from your children is not going to fix things. So if they come back, we say to ourselves, okay, this is what's happening. Mom is learning to identify when she needs help earlier. And this is a very important thing, because if she comes earlier, she's further away from ever abusing her child, right? So we're not unhappy if they'll come back. We're a little bit more unhappy if we know that they had some big troubles and they don't come back.
Do you have any that are dropped off and not picked up?
I have to tell you this story. I know I'm going over.
No.
But I have to tell you this story. When I very first went to Kids Kottage, this is all we heard about, was that parents were going to just bring their kids there and then never come back and get them. And then it was going to be our undoing, right? And I have to tell you, 20 years later, I think maybe 7 families I can think of did not come back. And of those 7 families, at least 3 of them did not come back because they didn't have what it took to go to social services themselves. And they knew if they left their kids with us, we would do it. We would make sure their kids were safe. Things happen too, like the mom who was on a bus and the bus broke down, and she was traveling from some other community and the bus broke down, and she's not there to pick up her children, and we're starting to get, now what is going on here? And we do have a rule that if they're 2 hours overdue and they haven't talked to us about it, well, then we will phone social services because we'll consider the kids abandoned. Well, of course, we have just phoned social services, and this frantic mother is on the phone. This is what's happened, my kids aren't gone, are they? No, they're not, and we will actually phone and tell them that it's fine, she's been in touch and she's coming to get them. And so it's all such real life. Any kind of situation you can think of that you might get yourself into, that and more is happening to our families, right? A mom who is extremely highly stressed, so we're keeping her kids and she's out there trying to get stuff in order, but she's really stressed, right? And the next time you talk to her on the phone, and we encourage them, phone us every day and let us know how you're doing, right? And she is so sick, she can't put one foot in front of the other, and it's like, please, I can't come get them. Well, no, we understand that. You have nobody else there and you are sick, so we'll give you an extension, right? Extensions don't happen very often because we just determined if we were always having to give an extension, then we weren't the right agency in the first place. And that's the conversation that we would be having with Mom. And we would help her find the right one. We don't exactly want to be a Band-Aid. We want to be in a Band-Aid like day one sort of thing. But we really want parents to work with us and let us walk beside them and actually make their lives different. Make them better parents, the parents they want to be. And to really know and understand that child development, we know so much about it now. And neglect and abuse is just damaging our little guys' brains. Like, we only get one brain, right? But it is the thing, we are a lifesaver for parents where things are going wrong and they know it's going to be impacting their child's brain. But if they can get them to the cottage till they sort stuff, okay, that's going to go away, right? We're going to spend the time with the kids and we're going to make sure that they're doing all the things that kids their age and stage should be doing. And lots of parents really are trying to protect that little brain.
Has your success had any influence on the provincial government to try and start other organisations like that or change their policies in any way, you think?
Well, I don't quite know how to answer that. Does the government know, this is what we know. The government would be horrified if there was not a kids cottage anymore in Edmonton. It would be horrific. We are carrying a big load that they would otherwise have to carry. They are well aware of that. And their workers are referring clients all the time. You know what I think? I don't think this is so terrible that we need to go in there and get your kids and send them to foster care. I think you're worn out and you're not really thinking straight. How about you phone that cottage and see if they could get your kids in, and then they'll walk with you a bit. They'll probably sort it out and everything will be fine, right? Now us, Kids Kottage Foundation, we very much would like to have 3 more crisis nurseries in Edmonton, smaller ones in 3 more sectors.
Yes.
The transportation, that's brutal for parents, especially in the winter. You think about a family that's in Millwoods.
And they don't have a car.
And they don't have a car, and you gotta bundle these little kids up, and then you get them on the bus and the kids are crying all the time and people are looking at you like you're a terrible parent. They're so sensitive to that, you know. Nobody knows whether you're rich or poor or where you're going on the bus, but they are so sensitive, you know, to that. And so we really believe just smaller ones. We probably have the infrastructure we need in the cottage we have, in our own administration, to manage that part of it. But you know, this is a very expensive program. $1.3 million every year. It's very expensive. And so in order to raise enough to get the little cottages, and of course, well, I don't know if we're dreamers but I mean, someday I want to see one in Red Deer. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I want to see this province step up and have the help that families need when they need it.
Any indications that the new government is thinking in that direction? Or?
Really, we've entertained the Minister of Human Services at the cottage. But I think that they're so new and they're so embroiled in everything, and I don't think they know how everything goes yet, right? And so I'm going to say the jury's out on that.
Where does your funding come from?
So exactly half of the funds to run the crisis nursery itself come from the provincial government. And everything beyond that, which comes to usually every year, about $700,000 net of expenses, we are fundraising. So you can imagine we're aggressive fundraisers, we're at it all the time. But there is no, I'm here to tell you there's no vehicle better to help children and families. Because there's no use to believe that there won't always be families that are in trouble. I am astounded myself, though, that so many families found themselves in such dire straits so fast with this downturn.
How
And
do you get the information out to the people who need it?
Who need it?
Who don't know you exist?
Right, okay. Social services, all the churches,
Oh, yeah.
doctor's offices, the schools. We've had lots of referrals actually from the
Oh,
schools.
that's good.
And, sorry?
I was just going to add, I worked for Ben Caffro,
Oh, did you?
and we used to
Mm-hmm.
refer to
Yeah.
you.
Ben Caffro, like, wonderful organization that we can work alongside with, and they're doing all of our Aboriginal awareness now. And, you know, sometimes with kids, because it's 24 hours, it's a pain to try and get everybody trained and and they're so good, because they really, oh, well, okay, we'll do it this way for you. They're great.
Well, I'll start our thank yous now. We don't have to end at one, but I try to end formally at one for people that do have to leave. I think it's an incredible organization, and I have been somewhat aware of it, but they provide a stopgap for people who, it must be, to have to admit that you're not being a good parent to your child is hard enough. But then to fear that once they get into the system, the child welfare system, we hear stories of people who give up custody and trying to get it back. So you give them, you're providing that stopgap. But it's interesting that the province funds you, so the province admits in a way that their system needs another piece.
Yeah, they would say that we are an early intervention program, right?
Yeah.
And so even they use us that way.
Yeah.
This family is not in such bad shape that they really need a government intervention. But they do need somebody to help them and to guide them.
Right.
And the place that they are going to refer them to is the cottage.
Yeah, well then they should be funding you fully.
I know.
Absolutely.
But look, we wouldn't have so much fun going out and talking
Oh,
about
I
it.
know, but we know that every dollar spent in early intervention saves money.
It
If
does.
for no other, it's not just that it's the right thing to do, but it's actually economically the right thing to do too.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to say the half funding which you receive is very typical of the past history of our governments in Alberta. I'm on the board of Gelmans House,
Oh,
which
are
is
you?
a residence for men alcoholics, a recovery home after they've been sober for a month. And our budget is just slightly over half from the provincial government. But we just recently added a new bed, and gone from 16 to 17 beds. No response from the provincial government. And so we may have to raise the fees that we charge the men who live there. John and I have both been on no room in the inn for many, many years, and we've a couple of times supported Wings of Providence, and it's amazing what they do, because they go on beyond this first step, and mothers are mostly referred from places like Windhouse, but when they can move in, they're there for anywhere from 6 months to several years, depending on the situation. And there's a public school nearby and a Catholic school nearby and so on, so that the family can get into the normal run of community while the mother is either taking job training or starting to work in a job.
Yeah. Yeah. What I do like about what's happened in our province is that I do feel like we are quite hooked up. I don't know if you experience that, but we are all part of a continuum. And wherever people need the help, that's where we can give it to them, right? We often have children from Windhouse at the cottage because they don't have the childcare, and mom has to go out and do all sorts of things, right, to ensure that she can stay there. And so we often will have kids. And family violence is a huge thing. It is so huge. And it's like, oh, you just wonder, what are you gonna do about it? Like, such a high percentage of our children will have witnessed family violence. But what's even sadder than that is that a very high percentage of our parents will admit that they too witnessed family violence.
Yes.
So it's, I guess, what we're watching, you know, it just carries on.
Why isn't there similar programs all over the rest of the province? Is Alberta the only one that has a kids cottage?
You know, in Alberta, there's one in Edmonton, there's us, and then there's Children's Cottage in Calgary.
Oh, there is.
And that was the joke that the very first group that got together to make Kids Kottage, after they had traveled to the States and they figured out this model and they all got up and going, what did they discover? There's a crisis nursery in Calgary of all things. And so they've often laughed about that. And we work really well together, but we are not in any way affiliated.
Yes, yes.
But in Canada, crisis nurseries that run like ours do, you won't find probably any other one that runs like we do. There is one in Saskatoon, but it is run by the government and it's much more like a big group home, I think, right? It's not quite like this. And I think we caught track of one in, where was that? In Prince George or something. But it's not quite like ours. And we're really trying to keep our model because we think it's good,
Yeah.
right? We think it's good.
Any evidence that Alberta is worse, one of the worst provinces for social housing problems, or?
I heard the other day that we were topping the charts on some. that Alberta was really bad for that. I think if you, let's face it, we've always been a have province. And when you have, you don't pay attention sometimes to your business the way you should.
You go up and down, don't we?
Mm-hmm. And so, but in the same breath, Alberta's the one that was innovative enough, right? We actually do have 2 crisis nurseries in Alberta. So you know, you can't, you know. I just really feel, I feel that our Aboriginal people are really struggling, and I think to myself, like, what are we going to do about that? 50%, you guys, of the kids that come to the cottage have an Aboriginal heritage. One thing I should tell you about Kids Kottage is, while 50% of our clients are Aboriginal, we do not run an Aboriginal program, okay? We say to ourselves, okay, a mom is a mom, and a child is a child, and help is help. Now, that's what we're gonna do. And I did have, a few years ago, was having a meeting with the Minister of Children's Services at the time, and she said, you know, it is just bizarre. We spend so much time trying to convince Aboriginal people that they should go to our programs, you know, that they should participate. And she said, and they just go to yours. And I said, sometimes I think Aboriginal people would like to be just a mom. Do you know what I mean? I'm just a mom, okay? And I'm mom first and I'm Aboriginal next, right? They're such fabulous people, and we really enjoy working with them because you know what? They get out there and they give her. Yes, they do. Aboriginal people are going to pull it out. Yes, they are. I really believe they are. For sure.
What about the referrals from other parents? Do you get that kind of thing too? And what about the children? Do they graduate and come back? Or?
Do they graduate? Well,
In other words, do they recognize the support they've had? Does that make an impact on them?
yeah, they do. We actually have the odd child who will phone themselves and say,
Oh, really?
it's time for Mom to bring us to the cottage. Why would you think that? Because she just went to the doctor and the doctor gave her new medicine and now she's never awake. She's sleeping all the time and we don't get to eat, right? Because Mom is, and so we say, we'll know that family, right? So we say, okay, go wake Mom up and ask her if she'll please call. Say that we would like to talk to her. And then you'll find out, yeah, like I got new psych meds and I'm just wasted, like, right? It takes a while to get accustomed to them. And then lots of times she'll say, well, yeah, I should let the kids be cared for there until I get myself sorted. I can tell you a lovely story of a little girl who was in her class at school and they were sewing. And her teacher said, so when we're finished all these projects, I think we'll take them to Kids Kottage because we're not far from that school. She said, I know they can use them. And this little girl said, do you know where is Kids Kottage? And the teacher said, no, quite frankly. I just know that they have children there and they could use these clothes that you guys are sewing. And the little girl said, I will tell you about Kids Kottage. I have stayed there. And when I was really hungry, I got to eat. And I had a really nice bed. And she told her teacher all of this. And so when the teacher came to drop the things off, the things they had sewn, she brought that little girl with her. And there were still people at the cottage who recognized her.
Oh, my.
And she said, I really would like to go and have a tour. Let me go through again so I can remember all the rooms and everything. And so we did. And we said to her, so how are things now? And she said, they're not perfect, but they're actually okay. Way better than when I stayed at Kids Kottage.
Oh, wow.
So that was really nice.
Yes.
Santa just went by.
Yeah, I saw that.
It wasn't just me. No, it wasn't just you, I saw him too. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Who doesn't want to know Santa went by?
Do parents refer one another?
Yes, a great deal. Mhm. I think it's like one person goes out and tries it. And then she says to her friend, like they're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I must say how much I appreciate hearing you. I had never heard about Kids Kottage and,
Oh, I'm glad I could tell
and
you.
now I suddenly realize how valuable it is that, and I never really knew anything about it.
It's so hard, eh,
Yeah.
to get the word out to
Yes.
everybody.
Yeah.
One of the ways that someone was asking, how do we get the word out? One of the ways we do a radiothon every Christmas time at Shine FM.
Oh, yeah.
We all go down to West Edmonton Mall and they actually do for the whole day, for 12 hours, 6 in the morning till 6 at night. They broadcast from there.
Oh.
And we have a bank of telephones and we ask people to phone their donations in, right? And as part of that campaign, we put big signs on the back of buses.
Mm-hmm. I've seen those.
And it is amazing, that does kind of, we've gotten calls from parents who are completely undone and they are stopped in traffic behind that sign. And the number's on there. And they'll call. And they'll be in trouble, right? So that's another way. And then the other thing is that all of our donors are always spreading the word
Yes.
as well, right?
Any corporate donations?
Yes, we do. We have two companies, we call them our Earth Angels, and that's Mammut and Brookfield Residential. These companies give us $25,000 every year, and they're not done. They fundraise all year long. When the telephone volunteer thing comes up, down they send their crew. We were doing the tree lot at IKEA. Might have heard about that.
Yes.
Mammut and Brookfield send their teams down to work that tree lot. They are just fabulous. And there are others that do maybe not that much, but that do help us out a lot.
Do you get food from the food bank for the home, or does your
We buy it.
fundraising? Okay.
Yeah, we buy that food. You know, we all have our little food bank. I always think the food bank should be for people that are hungry and they don't have any food. So we buy it. But it is part of our fundraising. Like we do approach corporate donors and say, this is how much our food budget is. Would you consider, paying our food budget for this year? Right? And there are lots of people that will make sense to them, right? So, yes, we do buy our own, but we get lots of food donated. We put on our wish list when there's, the big quantities of stuff. We put it on there and lots of people donate it.
Oh, that's great.
It is great, yeah.
Is it quality food? The one thing that worries me almost about the food bank is you're paying to have these young children get inculcated into eating junk.
No, we don't eat junk. We eat good red meat and chicken and fish.
We're talking to a vegan here, so.
Oh, sorry.
Shouldn't have mentioned that. but-
Well, I can tell you a story. People often think that the kids that come to the cottage would not like vegetables, right? I don't know why, but it's a
Most
perception
people
that we have. But you know what? If you put a plate of raw veggies on the table and let them have something to dip them in,
Oh, yeah.
that plate will disappear so fast, it's not even funny.
Vegetables,
Their parents just simply can't afford to buy it.
yeah.
Doesn't mean the kids don't like it.
Or maybe don't know how to prepare vegetables so they're tasty.
Could be that
Yeah,
too.
that's-
Yeah.
Lori, thank you. Again, I
Thank
mean,
you.
we